Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's ERAC and Iberian Horse Alliance webinar. We're so glad you're here. Tonight, we have the privilege of spending time with Mirka Crew, a Czech-born trainer, clinician, and International Liberty Horse Association judge, whose work is all about clarity, posture, connection, and the kind of partnership that lets a horse choose to stay with you at liberty. Mirka has spent more than 2 decades developing posture-focused training and a methodical, safety-first approach to liberty that starts small, stays simple, and builds real communication. She has shown and trained at the highest levels of liberty and bridle-less work, and she brings that same thoughtful eye to every horse, whether Mustang or Iberian. Well, actually, they're both, right? Iberian
Exactly.
horses already possess the intelligence, sensitivity, and desire for partnership that make liberty work so rewarding. Tonight, Mirka will help us see how that work can deepen the bond we already value so highly in our breed. Please join me in welcoming Mirka Crew.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here with y'all.
Thanks for being here.
So, Mirka, I had this set up so that you can decide whether you'd like to talk about your liberty or your posture and balance that you do, or whatever you kind of can just guide us on, and then we'll do a little Q&A at the end if that works for you.
Okay. So, who is our audience? Who is this for? What would y'all like for me to talk about?
The Iberian Horse Alliance.
Okay,
Remember
so you all probably want me to talk about how I incorporate liberty training with my Iberian horses, my Mustangs, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I got into the Mustangs in 2012, and I have competed in several Extreme Mustang Makeovers. And I have gentled quite a bit of them since then for the makeovers as well as for clients, for the general public. And I have found that starting at Liberty is my background, which is something I've done for about 30 years, is a great way to get these horses to bond with us and to start trusting us. So typically I start in the
I think we have a little
Is it
technical
me
glitch
or
here.
did she? Okay, because I was like, is it my internet or did she freeze?
No, she froze. Oh, there she is.
I'm back. So in the round pen, I may take over what I call takeover territories, and it's oftentimes intentional with my footwork and my body language. I may use a lunge whip as an extension of my arm to be able to reach towards the panels. And once the horse kind of realizes that they don't have a place to go to the right or to the left, they usually start facing me, start looking at me, and now we can start a conversation. I basically get their attention, and then I try to encourage with just a little bit of rhythmic pressure on their personal space bubble to cause them to want to take that one step with the front foot towards me. And that's how I start building the draw for the liberty training, which eventually takes us all the way to the beautiful cantering liberty circles in wide open spaces and performances in front of a spotlight. But this is like the crucial, most important step where I start. It's where the commitment is. For me, a commitment in a horse is not through a hind quarter yield like a lot of people do. For me, it's in the front feet. I have found that when the horses start walking towards me or turning towards me with their front feet, they're starting to trust me and they're starting to commit to coming up to me. And once I get those little moments like that, I start rewarding that by, I might even walk out of the round pen, or I may just back off, or I may just soften my body language when that happens. And pretty soon the Mustangs are very smart. They figure out that the draw is what I'm after. And then I get very particular about how I ask them to draw and what position I would like for them to come to. I establish a gas pedal typically I call it the gas pedal, like creating forward in your horse, even though you're in front of them. So basically when the horse is facing me, I am in front of the horse's drive line. So anything in front of that drive line, which is where the horse's shoulder is going to tell the horse that they should stop or they should turn away. So if I increase the pressure while I'm in front of their drive line, instinctively the horse wants to turn away or slow down or stop or back off away from me. So what I have to do now is tell the horse that even though I'm in front of the drive line, and even though the rhythmic pressure or steady pressure may be in front of the drive line, I'm asking them to draw. So this is where we establish the cues and establish the communication for them to come up to me, even though they may not be sure about if that's what I want, because I am in front of that drive line. So typically it's easier to draw the horse to our shoulder instead of to our chest. It's like a softer area of our body. And, the core in our body where our belly button is has a lot of energy and a lot of intention. And so it's a lot easier for the horses to come up to us to the side first. And when I teach my horses to go to the left, to my left shoulder, and then to the right, to my right shoulder, it also equalizes both sides. So by stepping towards the Mustang and the round pen, typically there's like this moment of, what should I do? Like, the person's coming up to me. Should I back off? Should I run away? Should I freeze? What should I do? And in that moment, when I see like that the horse is starting to make a decision, I kind of ask them to make a decision, and then I back off with my body language. And oftentimes in that moment, the horse sees the release towards me and they start getting that confidence to want to come up to me. And I usually support that with like a driving stick or lunge whip, usually pressing on the horse's personal space bubble. And with the Mustangs, that space bubble might be pretty big from the side. So I raise my stick up, usually kind of at the rib cage area or maybe even above the horse's hip. And then when the horse starts trying to come up to me or shows a little bit of a shift of weight towards me to start drawing, I will take the whip and I will put it behind my back. I used to lower the whip and just put it on the ground, but I have found that to the Mustangs that are still pretty wild and they haven't been gentled, that's also pressure, having something in front of them. So I'll take my whip and I quickly take it away from them and just put it behind my back. And pretty soon, step by step, I can kind of walk towards the horse with an intention to draw with my stick up off the ground. And then when I get that feeling and I can see that they're shifting their weight and they're committing to me, I back off. And pretty quickly, this confidence that I'm building with them and these cues that I'm teaching them build towards more. And, over time, once I can touch the horses with the stick, I can approach and retreat and touch them. Over time, the horses get more and more confident where I can even kind of flick behind the tail a little bit and they're not afraid of it. And I can start encouraging more and more draw. And this is something that I do with all of the Mustangs, every single one of them, before I ever even put a halter on. So I should be able to walk into the round pen, walk towards them, or even just walk in and then start drawing. That's really nice. Like when I show up at the gate and they start coming up, that's like a really good confirmation that they're feeling positive about spending time with me and confident about it. And so once I create that draw, I might start adding changes of direction. I might start adding speed to it, maybe even a trotting draw. And one of the biggest things that I probably do is I have a really big walk away. And whether it's like get out of the round pen, go do something different, come back, like do short little sessions, Or once the horses already have a nice draw, I will ask them to do something, whether it's trotting a circle or changing direction or side passing or backing up, whatever, as we advance. But I have a lot of frequent moments where I walk away from the horse and I'm kind of encouraging a draw while I'm doing that. And that's when the horse starts walking either behind me or they're starting to walk up towards my shoulder and getting closer. And once I start getting that, then I become the place of release. So many times we get into a session with our horse and we're kind of like, oh, I got to yield the horse this way and I got to yield the horse that way. And I got to ask him to go over a log or whatever it might be. But so many times there's so much like intention and focus into that horse. But if we can add as often as possible these short little moments of walking away and just causing us to become a place of more release than so much pressure, this creates such a strong magnet, especially with these Mustangs that want to bond. They have this strong family instinct. That's why I love the Mustangs so much, because they have that instinct that, you know, safety is in numbers. So even though they don't appear that way when we pick them up at an adoption or something, they're all scared and they're trying to push onto the fence and things like that. But they do want to bond, and it's more ingrained in them, I think, than in domestic horses, unless you're raising a baby since they're little, a foal. I've seen this in foals also, because they have that desire to be with someone because it's a safety thing for them. So once I can create that magnet where I become the place of release, then it's pretty hard to get these horses actually off of me. And it's pretty hard to ask. It gets harder to ask them to actually yield away from me. And this is where it gets tricky, because if I don't balance that draw with the communication and the responsiveness of them being able to yield, what can happen is these horses might get into our personal space too much, and they may not want to even leave, or when they're coming in, they may start crowding us with that inside shoulder. And it's very important to continue keeping that balance between the draw and the drive on this, because in my experience, I have more issues driving them out than I have drawing them in. A lot of people come to me for liberty training, for clinics and lessons, and typically their biggest fear is that the horse is going to run off. And if you use this approach where you teach your horse to draw to your shoulder instead of your chest, so that there's good forward energy in this, when we draw our horses to our chest, there's like this block, like they come up to us, but then what, like they get stuck in front of our chest. What can you do with that? Well, you can back them up, you can side pass them, or you can step out of the way and send them, or you can kind of like chase them off. But when you draw your horse to your shoulder, you have him in a position where you can restart another circle by either stepping away or side passing them out, and you're not in the way. So there's more like confidence in the energy of coming towards us in the forward. So once you establish that and you use a lot of the releases, and becoming that magnet, really like taking the horse for walks, and even eventually in bigger spaces, go to another place in the arena, so you're not always stuck in one place. Like a lot of people just kind of get stuck in the same spot, and it gets kind of like, it becomes a place of work and a place of pressure. And just giving the horse a break and walking away somewhere and taking him for a walk. Horses bond with each other the most when they're like side by side. They go for walks, they go get water, they're grazing. They're like pairs of horses that we see. I have big herds at my place, up to like 12 horses. There's these pairs that are bonded and they're always going everywhere together. So it simulates that, and it creates and establishes a really strong bond. But I have to stress that we have to work on the yielding, the responsiveness, because usually the draw in my program is not the hardest thing. It's usually once we establish that, that's easy to get. Even if the horses get distracted and maybe they decide to leave the session, and My arena is 200 by 300 feet, so it's a really big arena. So when my Liberty horse, quote unquote, runs off, decides to focus on something else other than me, maybe I have been gone traveling for a month and they're more hooked on my herd instead of me, they may run to the gate, but I can always walk back to the gate and I can start my session there in that gate area in the corner. And if I already have communication established about them drawing back to me, usually the session goes on without any more hiccups. So the draw is not the problem. So I would strongly encourage for everyone to work on their side passes, work on their backup so that we can get these horses off of us, because, and this is where the posture focused training that I teach comes in, because in order for the horses to be able to perform at liberty, oftentimes, unless we want to run with the horse, which I usually don't do a lot of, I have hip dysplasia, so I can't run a lot. I wish I could because it's fun. But so for me, I usually try to be as stationary as possible. I might be walking with the horse, but my goal is that I can have these horses on bigger circles and they are not on these tight little circles all the time. So how am I going to communicate to these horses that I want them to go on a circle 20 feet away from me, not just 5 feet away from me, and still keep that connection going, but also educate my horses about the balance while they're on those circles. So at Liberty, oftentimes we see people practice circles at Liberty. That's kind of like the foundational work. But then how can we create and establish a really good balance in the horse while they are on those circles, so that, one, they are not leaning towards us like a motorcycle getting on top of us. That's the crowding. And maybe even the horse is too bonded with us and there's too much rapport and too much draw, and we haven't established enough of that responsiveness for them to go out, or we don't have cues for that established, or the willingness for them to go out. And so that leaning in, crowding, we need to have a side pass so we can shift the horse's weight to the outside, over the outside feet, so that they can shift their weight out and they can be more upright when they're traveling on those circles. You can see that oftentimes, especially when the horses are cantering. They're leaning in the walk. It's usually good. Trot, sometimes it gets worse, or the horses might be distracted looking to the outside with their nose, and therefore the hip or the rib cage or sometimes the shoulder kind of falls to the inside. Again, like leaning in, putting more weight over the inside feet like a motorcycle. And we need to have a way to communicate with these horses about going back out onto a bigger path of travel, a bigger circle. Usually our goal is to position the horse's spine on the line of travel. And this is probably the most important thing that I focus on when I'm working on this. Can I position the horse's pole through the wither, through the tail, on that path of travel? So if the circles are smaller, in order for the horse to have good lateral balance, which is what I'm talking about right now, the leaning in or sometimes leaking out, which I haven't mentioned yet, the horses might be drifting away, and we'll talk about that too, how to address it and how to help that. We have to have communication established for the horse to position the spine on the line of travel. And once you do that, on those smaller circles, it's going to have more flexion in the neck and bend through the body. And on the bigger circles, they're going to be a little bit straighter, which is a little bit easier. However, when you create too much straightness, the horse may go bye-bye, because now they're straight and they start looking where they're going straight ahead of them, and now they get disconnected. And so sometimes, there's a lot of factors that can play into this. Is the horse's posture naturally crooked? Is the pelvis tilted? I get a lot of horses in training that have a tilted pelvis, like people don't even notice it. Or maybe the muscles on one side have been more contracted, so there's not as much flexibility. Maybe we have a stronger hind leg and one a little bit weaker one, and that's very common in horses. Usually most horses have one hind leg stronger and one hind leg more flexible. So we have to kind of equalize that. And my posture focused training program takes you step by step through all the little ingredients to be able to communicate to each body part to position the spine on the line of travel. And once we do that, the horse is usually not leaning in or drifting away. And as far as the drifting away goes, so many times that is caused by the lack of balance in the horse. You're asking them to do a tight little liberty circle, and they don't know how to hold it. It's kind of like when you go on the little, I don't know what y'all call it here, but it's like you're hanging in the seat by the chain at the merry-go-round thing, and it's kind of swinging you outward. So like imagine 1,200 pounds of weight of the horse. This is like physics, is trying to make a curve, and 1,200 pounds of animal is kind of drifting to the outside. Like a lot of it is just physical, that the horses don't know how to hold this. And we might think that the horses don't love us and they don't want to play with us and they are drifting away. And so many times this can be addressed by teaching them how to put their spine on the line of travel. Or in the opposite case, when the horse is leaning in, if we don't have nice leg yields or side passes established and we create a really strong bond, how do we tell the horse now that we would like for them to be on a 15-foot circle or a 25-foot circle, but we don't have the communication to do that? So many times the horse is too much on top of us, and we may just start using our stick, telling them to get off of us. And now they have their feelings hurt because they don't know what to do. We just told them to come in. Now we're telling them to go away, and there's confusion now. So adding the clarity, having the methodical process of how to create the good lateral balance. And usually, like if everybody just worked on that, the lateral balance, you would find a lot more connection at Liberty for our students, for horse owners, because that's your basics. This is stuff that we work on with our dressage horses. Like what's the first thing that we work on is lateral balance. What are the first lateral maneuvers that we do? Shoulder ins and leg yield. So it's no different, just taking that same process and focusing at it on the ground. And the fancy stuff comes later, once we have a good lateral balance established, then we shift the horse's weight back and we start doing shortenings and lengthenings, again, just like in dressage. And we start compressing the body and start shifting the horse's weight back. And then we can start doing the cantering pirouettes and all the fun things at Liberty. But we have to have that communication established from the foundational stuff, from the lateral balance into the vertical balance. And something I've learned about horses is, especially Mustangs from the wild, one of the biggest fears that they have is that they are going to fall down. So when you have a horse that doesn't have good lateral balance or has too much weight on the front end, they tend to be in a hollow posture. They tend to have their neck up high and a hollow back, because having the weight of the head and the neck up high and those back muscles tightened instead of the core muscles at that stage prevents them from falling down. Like nobody likes to trip and feel like they're going to fall down. And the same for the horses. And so again, our job is to methodically teach them how to have that lateral balance so that they can soften that top line and start using their core muscles. And then we can shift the horse's weight over their hindquarters and start working on collection. So many times I see people focus too much on trying to get the horse's head on a vertical and trying to like compress before the horse has good lateral balance. If the horse feels like they're going to fall down laterally, they're going to tighten that top line. And this has been probably like one of the biggest discoveries for me in training horses, whether it's for reining or dressage or liberty, is creating that lateral balance. I have found that once you establish it, the horses usually drop their head on their own. Like that lengthening in the top line is oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes a result of good lateral balance, and the horse will just kind of float into it. And pretty soon they fall in love with that feeling of the balance and the looseness in their body, and they start offering it. And the cool thing, like with Mustang Marvel, when I spent the 8 years with her, was watching how she started using her body better out in the field with the other horses. So, I travel, I teach a lot, I travel for clinics. I'm not always home to be, strengthening those muscles and keep reminding her of the good balance, but the muscle memory and the good feeling that she got out of a passage and out of a stretchy trot, I would see her out there in the pasture doing it by herself. And that's the exciting stuff for me when the horse is out there training themselves, because they have good positive habits. It's like if somebody always reminded you to have a good, stand up straight and get your shoulders back, that kind of stuff. And eventually, or you take dancing classes, like you can spot a dancer, right, in the room, like, oh yeah, that one's probably a dancer or a gymnast. Like they have a nice posture, and that starts happening with these horses too. So it's been an incredible journey for me to be able to communicate to the horses about their balance and encourage that better, healthier movement in them, even at liberty. Because to me, it's physics. Like I shouldn't have to be there with my reins or with my rope, holding it all together. Horses are smart enough to where we can remind them that, hey, this is not your best balance. This is a better balance, and then reward it, whether you want to use treats or you want to walk away or you just want to let them feel that moment of good balance and stuff, that they fall in love with. All those strategies work really well. So I think this is a good overall kind of overview of my program and the process. Does anybody have any questions? Was everything pretty clearly explained? Or
It's amazing that all this happens without you on the horse. That's just incredible.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so key. I have so many questions for you.
Good. Bring them.
How long does that draw generally take
Mm-hmm.
when you're first starting a horse? What's the range? I know you've gotten really good at it, so you're probably quicker than most, but what do you normally expect?
Mm-hmm. So I think it depends on the horse's history a lot. Are we talking about a domestic horse that has had a good experience with people, bad experience with people? Are we talking about a wild Mustang that's never had positive or a lot of positive experiences with people? And also, like I'll get a phone call that somebody has had a wild Mustang in their round pen for 2 years, and for 2 years they've been going in the round pen and haven't been able to put a halter on. So and those are extreme cases. I've had a Mustang that had been to 3 different trainers, could not put a halter on. That horse took me 4 months to get the halter on. But, thankfully the client had the budget and was determined, and we were able to get it done. That was probably the most extreme one. But again, I did not go for any, like, I don't rope the Mustangs. I didn't go to chasing this horse. Like, I really went in that round pen, in and out, and established that trust and the bond. And it took me about 4 months to get a halter on that one. But on average, I would say probably 2 or 3 days to have like a trotting draw with the wild ones, with the domestic ones. Yeah. At least at the walk. Yeah. Having them walk up and maybe not like all the way to me, because that my bubble is still kind of threatening to them, but just to be able to peel them off the wall and off the panels and bring them in. I would say 2 or 3 days.
And how big is your round pen?
I think it's about 50 feet.
Okay. And you like that size when you're...
Mm-hmm.
Mirka,
Okay.
Yeah. Susan did
Yes,
her
go
first Mustang. Susan did her first Mustang this
Oh, how
summer
cool.
at an event we did. She was one of my listeners at an event in North Carolina.
Oh, wonderful.
I wish I could have seen you before we did it. I'm sure I would have gotten a lot out of it.
I froze up again, probably.
Huh?
There
Oh.
you are. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It
There you
froze
go.
up.
I wish I had gotten to see you before I did all that, but sometimes going in fresh without any
Mm-hmm.
ideas is a good thing
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, so many times you can follow your intuition and your feel. Yeah, and not being so in your head about it. Yeah,
Right.
that's a good approach too. And you know, it gets better. Like, it's so many people are afraid to go out there and mess the horse up. That's probably the most common thing I get. I'm afraid. I talked to a lady yesterday. She has this nice horse, and I think it's a thoroughbred, and she's like, I don't ever ride my horse anymore because I don't want to mess the horse up. You know, like, we're so afraid of the experiences, but so many times we have to experience in order to learn. We have to make mistakes. We have to see, you know, in order to learn how something works, we have to learn the 200 ways of how it doesn't work. But yeah, it can be helpful to have a mentor for that, for sure.
Is there something you look for in particular in a horse that you're going to adopt or want to adopt?
Absolutely. For me personally, for my personal horses, if I am looking for a Liberty horse, I'm looking for a horse with a really nice, exaggerated forward movement. So, like, those Iberian breeds are amazing for that. If I'm looking for a bridle-less horse, I want a horse with more whoa. I think it's so much easier to build fire than to put it out. I'm not saying that you can't make a nice Liberty horse, more wowy horse. That was Mustang Marvel, actually. And, you know, she made a lot better bridleless horse. It doesn't mean that you can't, but I think it's just harder and it takes longer.
Looking at my scribbles. Oh, so what's the biggest challenge when you are working with a horse that's already been with a person that has interacted with them? Is it, and a person already has a relationship with that horse and they want something different? What's the challenge, the biggest challenge in that?
Are we talking about domestic horses or ungentled Mustangs?
Domestic.
Domestic
Let's
horses.
say I've had a horse for a while, now I want to jump into this. Is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's so many domestic horses come to me where somebody has quote unquote round penned them. And typically what that involves is the person steps in the ramp, enters the horse loose, the whip comes up, and the whip is constantly kind of chasing the horse. And so many times I walk in the round bend and I take the halter off and the horses start running. Like, sometimes I don't even raise the whip off the ground, or the moment I pick the stick off the ground, or the lunge whip off the ground, the horse starts running. So I run into that quite a bit, where the horses have some kind of training in the round bend, but it's not Liberty training. It might be even more like cold starting type training, and there is a difference. And I do my round bend cold starting work a little bit differently than like for a Liberty performance horse work, because we are trying to establish more of feel cues for the ridden horse. So there might be even long lining involved. Like, it's more feel stuff. It's not so much visual stuff. But with these horses that come in, that they just start running, the best thing to do is put a halter on, put a lead line on, and set your foundation on the lead line. So many times, like, I don't use the round bend very often with the domestic horses, especially at the beginning. I spend a lot of time on my lead line and I get all the responsiveness. Usually most horses are not responsive. And whether it's they are scared and they're pushing into boundaries, or they are just too full of themselves and too bold, where they've become a little bit of like lap dogs, and the typically the women owners like to have their horses in their laps and petting on them. They do a lot of that, and then it's really hard to ask them to do anything else. So I work on the responsiveness typically on the lead line. And the lead line and the halter gives me clarity. So I don't suggest, like with the wild Mustangs, I kind of talked about the journey of training one kind of in the ramp and trying to give you an idea. But typically, I don't take a lot of horses off the lead line early on. I start my foundational stuff in the halter with the lead line. There's nothing to be ashamed of to do that. A Liberty journey at Liberty or a bridleless journey, completely bridleless, and I have done it, is very hard because we don't have the boundaries of the halter and the lead line and the reins and the bridle to help the horse find the answer that we're looking for. So I strongly suggest to set a good foundation on the lead line. And once it's there, if it's done correctly, the Liberty comes very quickly.
And how young is too young when you're starting this?
So I have a breeding program and I raise babies and I sell my foals to the public for family horses, for low-level performance horses, and we play with the babies the day they are born. So I'm not talking about like sacking them out or anything like imprinting type stuff. We just go in there and we just get them used to our presence and us touching them and us yielding them. And I don't put my halters on my babies till they're about 2 or 3 months old. So everything up to that point, I do at Liberty because, and we're not talking about I'm sending them on a circle. I'm talking about I show up and I might, initiate a run and they run behind me and I stop and they run up to me or come up to me and I might put my hand on their nose and I might tap their little chest and I might ask them to yield, or I might grab their nose and wrap my hand around the nose from the side and I might tip the horse's, the little foal's nose towards me and push on the rib cage a little bit and get a hind quarter yield. So like there's so many feel things and even visual things that we can do. Just playing with them, making it a fun game. It's short little sessions usually, but I find out that by the time I put the halter on, I mean, everything's there, other than learning how to respond to the pressure on their pole, like leading. I mean, all the yields are there. My foals yield their hindquarters, their rib cage, their front end yield. They can side pass, they can back up. I pick their feet up without the halter on. First trim so many times we don't even know.
Did she freeze again?
Be careful with the young horses if you're doing circling, like 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds. I wouldn't do tight circles with those to preserve their joints. So you can always walk a circle with a big stride with your feet and make your circle bigger and put them on a little bit longer lead line, or even if you're at Liberty, you can walk a big circle and make your circle bigger that way, even with like the 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds. So you're not stressing their joints.
Well, thanks for all that. I think that was
You're welcome. Okay.
I got a follow-up question to that. You were talking about
yes.
Lead line. Are we talking
yes.
like something I would pull the horse out of the stall and use to lead line that way? Or are we talking about a longer lunge line?
As far as what goes, what does your question refer to?
What Susan was talking about when you're first, maybe you don't have a round pin.
If you don't have a round pin. So my basic yields, I train on my lead lines are 8 feet or 9 feet long. They're not very long because I do a lot of dressage stick, close range, in-hand work to teach the horses how to go in all the different directions. And the reason why I choose to be with a short stick at a short distance is I have found I don't have to be so exaggerated. I can kind of support the horse from a close range distance. Horses are usually more connected at a closer distance. And so I start close range where I can like walk in there softly and touch the horse, lightly tap the horse or even push with my hand, whatever I'm doing. And then typically if you want to build towards distance, you're going to be using some kind of a stick to extend your arm a little bit, so like a dressage stick. But there's not as much chaos in my experience. Like the sessions can stay so much calmer, the horses are more relaxed. And once they have the clarity at the close range distance, then I will grab a driving whip and I will put them on a longer lead line. And then, however, the distance between me and the horse still stays stick length distance. That way, again, I'm close enough to support them. And this is where moving with my feet comes in play so that I can make my circles bigger. But if I need to change the horse's balance by pushing on the shoulder, pushing on the rib cage, or whatever it is that I'm asking them to do, or speed up a little bit, add a little impulsion, I am within stick length distance. Because when we're not, we have to be oftentimes so exaggerated, and now we're doing more and the horse is usually doing less, or they're confused about what we want because there's not enough clarity, there's not enough like of the hand held.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else have any questions?
I did have a follow-up question on, I guess, that whole topic. When you were saying that you don't halter the babies until they're 2 or 3 months old, how do you handle the ones that are, say, super independent, that are just not, like, they're not interested in staying with their moms? Because we have 2 now that, like, at 3 weeks old, they just left. I mean, normally they would follow the mom in, but we would lead the mom in and turn around and they're just gone.
Oh, I see. So you have a routine of leading the horses in the barn every day? Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, because it's really hot where we are right now, so we have to bring them in to put them under fans. And I've done breeding for a while. We've had a lot of foals, but these are like the most independent babies that I've encountered. So
that's a good thing long term, I think.
Yeah. But so that's what I have been. We do let them wear the halters when they're little just to get used to them. But we don't put a lot of pressure on the halter. But now that they just will not follow. Like one, I lost it. Like it went in my garage and I couldn't find it. And I'm not kidding. Like it was 15 minutes I was painting. Our entire property is compounded with fences and everything, and I couldn't find it. The mare was freaking out and he just came walking out of the garage like nothing happened. Like there's a bunch of stuff in there. You should go look at it. It's really interesting. And so now we're leading them.
Yep.
And I feel like since it is so early, like I don't want to overdo it because of course you don't want to put too much pressure on them, but I also have to know that they're going to stay with us at the same time.
Yeah. So typically that happens to us too. Not very often, but it does happen to us sometimes. And I have the advantage that I have usually an assistant trainer or working students, and it is okay to kind of send the foals where you need them to go. You might, usually just a little hand clap or waving your arms or something, walking up quickly towards the foal. Or if you need to grab a little driving whip, out of the kick zone and put a little pressure on them and just chase them, not chase them like, make them hot and all that, but just send them, teach them how to allow you to guide them to where you need them to go. But then I know that's hard to do when you're by yourself. But usually if you do that 2 or 3 times with another person, they get a little bit better about following their mama and going where they're supposed to go. But it's okay to send the foals away from you. Like, don't be afraid to send them places and put pressure on them, because that's all going to pay off when we do need to have that responsiveness. And like when you ask your horse to go out on a lunge line in the trot, I mean, we're gonna ask their booty to go, and it's okay for them to learn the boundaries. The earlier they learn the boundaries of our body and our even sticks, if we're using them, the better. Like I think of little foals so much like adult horses. I try not to treat them too much more differently. Like they are capable of learning. They're so smart. Like they can figure a lot of those training things, the methods that we're throwing at them, the cues, and they're so capable of picking up on this. And actually, I think it's underestimated because it's such a great time in their life to learn all these things. And if you do it early on, it stays with them forever. Like the foals that I sell, they trailer load, they bathe, they don't have a hard time with the farrier. They are independent from their mamas. They are not herd bound because we pull them out frequently once we do put halters on them. So I think it's underestimated. I would not be afraid to put a little bit of pressure on them because, like I said, the draw is easy to get with most horses. Yeah. So you're not going to hurt their feelings.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've had so much fun watching Alan Pogue. I don't know if you've seen his videos, Mirka, or Carrie, where he does his enhanced foal training with those babies are up on pedestals. We did Alan Pogue's training with the babies. Mm-hmm. It's like it starts like Mirka said at day one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They are so trainable. Oh my goodness.
Well, they learn. Look at in the wild. They have what they learn
have
in
to
those
learn
first
within a
3
week.
months.
Yeah. Within a week, a foal can do everything an adult horse can do, minus reproduction, obviously. So yeah, why couldn't we ask that out of them? Like they're totally capable. Yeah.
So this was great. Wow.
This was fun. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me for this. I enjoy talking horses.
Mirka, where are you? It's getting darker and darker as you talk.
Yeah, so we are actually on a family vacation, and that's why I was a little stressed today to get to this webinar. So my husband turns 50 this weekend, and we are doing a family trip for him. We are at a nice campground by the lake, and we brought our boats, and we're gonna have a great time. And so yeah, it's getting dark out here, but we just got here like 30 minutes before this webinar.
Okay.
So we made it. We drove through like storms and stuff, and I was like stressing a little bit, but I was like, we're gonna make it. I told my husband, I was like, I'm gonna reschedule this webinar when he booked, because he decided to do this for his birthday, and I was not expecting for it to be on a Thursday. And he said, no, we'll get there on time. Well, of course, you're trying to get 4 people going and everything.
Yeah, but you got there, so no worries.
We're here. Yeah, everything's great. We got here safely, and we're looking forward to spending some family time.
What state, Mirka? Where are you exactly?
I am in Georgia, and we are close to Macon for this vacation. Because
I'm in Birmingham, Alabama, so I'm not
Birmingham.
I'm not too far. I'll wave at you over there.
Yeah, you're right next to us here. My husband's oldest son's expecting our first grandbaby, and they live in Macon. So, and she's due like any day now. So we were supposed to be actually at the beach for this vacation, and we moved it to Macon just in case a little girl decides to come out to this world early. So,
that's so exciting.
Yeah. Well, that'll be your first grandchild?
It will be our first grandchild, yes.
Oh, wow. So have you I know you know of Dan James.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of his, I guess, students is based here in Birmingham. I don't know if she's still doing. Did you happen to, and she's done some exhibitions and clinics. Have you ever run into Christy Scotch?
I have. She came to our first or second Liberty Championship in Kentucky, in Lexington. That's the only time I've ever met her and seen her. We didn't have much chance to talk because it's so busy.
Yeah, she's based here, and I don't know how much she's still doing now. I think her mayor was blind in one eye as well.
She's also dressage, correct? Or...
Yeah, she was dressage. Yes. She did Liberty.
Okay. Yeah.
So where can we get more information on your program? How do you run that?
Yes, please.
Do we go to you? Do you have a book out, videos?
So if you go to my website, mirkacrew.com, there is an online academy in the top header. You can click on that, and it's the Sky's Not the Limit Online Academy. And I have all the basic foundational online courses for Liberty, for posture focus training. I am working on Liberty teams right now, pairing Liberty teams with my brand new Mustang Flame. She's been announced in our newsletter. She hasn't been announced kind of officially on Facebook yet, just for our insiders so far, but she is the most trainable Mustang I have ever worked with. I call her like a border collie. Like, she is so intelligent. She has learned so much in such a short period of time. She's a 2-year-old from Maverick Medicine HMA, and I'm just blown away by her. And so you're going to get to see her in the Liberty Team videos, and I will be preparing her on the side next to Suave for her cold start as well. And that's part of the Liberty teams too, is being on a ridden horse and having a horse at Liberty on the side. So you will be able to access that online course probably by the end of this year. And I've been asked for ridden courses, and those will be in the works probably next year. So, but you can get your foundation started definitely on the lead line, which is the posture focused training to address your horse's balance and posture, and then you can go straight into those Liberty courses. And another thing I have is 2 mindset courses. One is called the Unstoppable Mindset. That would be for another webinar, I think. And then I also have Connection and Harmony theoretical course, and I highly suggest that you kind of dig into those before or as you're going out there working on your other courses, because I have found that, around 80% of students never kind of follow through with continuing on their journey with their horse. After a clinic or after lessons, so many times, like, our mindset is what stops us. And that's kind of what I mentioned earlier. Like, people are scared to ride their horses so they don't mess them up and things like that. And even nowadays, like, trying to make time for yourself and make time for your horse and put it on the schedule. Like, so many times we have to schedule things, like we did this webinar, because otherwise it doesn't happen. Some other priority always kind of gets in the way of us spending time with our horse. So a lot of those things are addressed in my mindset course, so that you don't ever stop, even when things get hard and you run into things. And even when other people are telling you that, you're messing up your horse or whatever that is, like, there's just so many things that can stop us on this journey with our horse. And I think having the mindset in the right place to begin with is so important, to be able to stick it out and have fun with our horses.
Mm-hmm. You're here. Well, thank you so much for joining us and taking the extra effort and time to make it. And we hope you have a great happy birthday celebration, and we look forward to hearing about the baby.
Fantastic. Thank you all for having me. I enjoyed talking to y'all.
Thank you so much.
Have a nice vacation, Mirka. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Lisa. And I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Susan.